Hello, everybody, and welcome to another brand new episode of One Missing, One Murdered, All Indigenous. And for those of you that don't know, One Missing, One Murdered is a true crime podcast that dedicates itself to true crime cases involving Indigenous people. I'm your host, Jordan Lonebear, and I want to thank everybody that's come into the episodes that show all the support, all your love. It's gone through the roof for me, and I appreciate everything that you guys have done. You guys have actually made it possible for me to continue down this road and to further my involvement with the Missing Murdered Indigenous People movement. Now, one of the things that I thought a lot about is that I feel like sort of a small fish in a big pond with all of these issues. There are so many places out there that are covering these, which we all appreciate, and I want to thank you all for allowing me the support and the time to aid and do my part for, like I said, the Missing Murdered Indigenous People. One of the things that I've been asked a lot about when it comes to these cases and when I cover these cases is why nobody does anything about these and who's supposed to be over these. Now, I've actually sat down and talked with Lost and Missing in Indian Country creator Janet Franson, who's a retired homicide investigator from Florida. If you guys go back out and check out in our archives, she was actually our preview episode interview, and we got to talk about all of those things jurisdiction-wise and stuff like that. Now, another body that helps aid investigation and usually tends to take over a lot over the investigations is the Federal Bureau of Investigation. But the question there is, what is their role when it comes to these indigenous cases? Now, according to the FBI's website, FBI.gov, the FBI investigates the most serious crimes in Indian Country like murder, child sexual and physical abuse, violent assaults, drug trafficking, public corruption, financial crimes, and Indian gaming violations such as hunting and fishing rights. Now, more than 150 agents actually work in Indian Country matters full-time. The FBI actually promotes relationship building and information sharing through its Safe Trails task forces and working groups, and also providing critical training to Indian Country law enforcement in partnership with the Department of Justice and Bureau of Indian Affairs, or BIA, for those that know. And again, just reading off the website, there are actually 574 federally recognized American Indian tribes in the United States, and the FBI has federal law enforcement responsibility on nearly 200 of those Indian reservations. The federal jurisdiction is shared concurrently with the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the Office of Justice Services. Now, the FBI actually develops and implements strategies, programs, and policies to address crime in Indian Country, for which the FBI is actually responsible. And the programs that the FBI contributes include program management, support for operational and forensic expenses, training of Indian Country law enforcement officers like we talked about earlier, initiatives relating to missing and murdered Indigenous persons, domestic violence and sex offenses, reporting under the Tribal Law and Order Act, and for the support of the Safe Trails task forces. Among the FBI's partners in Indian Country matters are the Department of Justice, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the International Association of Chiefs of Police, and the National Indian Gaming Commission. And to further continue talking about that, a lot of people ask what kind of cases that the FBI investigates in Indian Country or within indigenous jurisdiction. Now, approximately 75% of the crimes that the FBI investigates in Indian Country are death investigations, physical abuse of a child, sexual abuse of a child, violent felony assaults, and rape. The FBI's Victim Services Division has victim specialists dedicated to Indian Country, representing about 1/3 of the entire FBI victim specialist workforce. These victim specialists are critical to the FBI Indian Country cases, assisting victims through the entire case process. As we've heard a lot in the past, the FBI has managed to keep a close relationship with the victims and the surviving victim's family as well. With all that being said, though, I really would like to extend the olive branch to have an opportunity to talk to someone from the FBI to kind of help clarify and to talk a lot about really what it is that they do, because I can read all of these facts all the livelong day, but hearing it from a representative of the FBI to kind of break down those roles and everything they do would be an amazing help to not only myself in understanding, but to you as well, the listeners, as well as families of victims that listen and not receiving the help that they deserve. So with that being said, I've actually taken 2 cases that the FBI has actually taken charge over and is the top investigating body for these investigations. But before we get into that, Again, I want to thank everybody that's come out in droves and shared love and support to the podcast through our YouTube channel, as well as our audio formatted podcast, which is located on Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Podbean as well. We truly never made it to Apple Podcasts, but, one day. I'm saying one day. I've actually got somebody here today in the studio to talk to and to help promote the newest line of products in their boutique. That's right, I'm talking about our main number one sponsor, Twisted Bear Boutique. So before we kick the show off, let's take some time to talk to Alexis as she promotes and talks and fills all of you beautiful listeners in on some of the amazing products that she has and is offering. Well, hello, Alexis. How are you doing?
I'm good. You actually got my name right this time. Thank you.
Yeah. For those that don't know, I guess to pull the sheep off the wool, or the wool off the sheep, however you want to phrase that. This is my beautiful wife, Alexis, and we've started this boutique. It's called
Twisted Bear Boutique.
So tell us about all the exciting products that you got going on. What's new? What's going on?
So actually a lot is happening with the store right now. We actually had 2 drops as of today, and which was a nice little surprise. Didn't plan on putting out 2 collections, but I thought it would be a good twist for everyone. See what I did there?
Oh, I love it. A twist. A twist, she says.
We just dropped a line. It's called the Grizzly Bear Men's Line.
Right.
Words are hard today.
Yeah, tell me about it.
So there's something for everyone. We are working on the Cub line right now. We don't have an official release date as of this time.
You're saying Cub line.
So it's just basically a kids line for boys and girls. So just for boys and girls, it's just a Cub line that I figure it would expand our collection, and there would be something for everyone to shop online at our store. And we have a wide variety of different styles. We go for the conservative, laid-back, comfy style, nice, flowy country dresses. We also have modern-day wear as well, more of like the city style. And then we have like a team of researchers right now doing the research on the latest trends possible. So there's constantly new lines being put out. Oh, we also have the Bougie Bear line as well.
You can tell us about that.
So that's basically our name brand product.
So some of the name brands that you're offering are Tommy Hilfiger, Lamborghini. Mm-hmm. Now, I want to say Louis Vuitton, but I'm not sure if that's one of the ones.
So we do have Louis Vuitton, but we are sold out right now. As soon as I released it, it dropped. It dropped so fast, and we sold out so fast. We do have Nipapiri, and that is a really awesome line. They actually just got traction not too long ago, but it's actually a really nice clothing brand as well for men.
I hope I get discounts on those. With all that being said, though, where can people find you? Where do we go to find this bougie line, these Grizzly men's line? Where do we go?
So you can shop with us on Facebook now at Twisted Bear Boutique. You can also find our group page where we dump daily savings in there, so you guys get codes. And that's also just the Twisted Bear Boutique. I'm trying to rename the group. Facebook has not approved me yet. Mm-hmm. So it's just going to be the Twisted Bear Boutique VIP.
Okay, because the public page that you have out there is the shopping one, correct?
Right, it's Twisted Bear Boutique LLC.
Okay, and then the group that those that listen to the show are in is the VIP.
Yeah, the VIP. So you get first information firsthand from us. Like this morning, our website went out, and I got a ton of emails from our tech team and our inventory team. They were just like, there's nothing on there. And I was like, oh, okay. A Zoom call right now. So, and I had to put out a statement. That's the kind of statements that I would put out there, is like, hey, we know our website crashed. We are working tirelessly on it. And it was up at 5.
To get back up and running, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Nice. Okay. Well, is there anything more you'd like to promote?
We have our Instagram page. We have our TikTok, which is just all the same, Twisted Bear Boutique. And then we have our Snapchat, which is Twisted Bee. And you can also email us at twistedbearboutique@gmail.com if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or emotional outbursts. So...
An emotional outburst?
It gets interesting. You do this line of work long enough, it definitely gets interesting after a while.
I'm guessing that's the department I'm going to get to handle.
Eventually, yeah. But yeah, other than that, that's everything right now. I definitely encourage everyone to go check out our new line because things just fly off the shelf.
Thank you. What about a promo code? I know everybody's asking me about promo codes and stuff like that, and I've released them a few times on here. What is the promo code for those that are listening to One Missing, One Murdered?
So One Missing, One Murdered, all caps.
And that's about, what, 10%?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for stopping by. So I know that you yourself are a fan of true crime. I mean, trying to tear you away from CSI or any sort of Netflix crime documentaries. Could I interest you in possibly staying for the show?
Absolutely. I haven't got to sit in one of these in a long, long time.
Well, officially, you're the first guest to actually be part of the show, not just an interviewee. But yeah, if you want to stick around, you want us to hang out for the show?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with our first case. And again, I want to say thank you to everybody that's come in, and I want to say thank you to Alexis and Twisted Bear Boutique for sponsoring this episode. All right, everybody, and welcome back to One Missing, One Murdered, All Indigenous. Today, we've got a special guest with us today. We're actually joined here with Alexis, who is actually the CEO and owner of Twisted Bear Boutique. We're going to have our very first co-hosted One Missing, One Murdered. Let's dive into our very first case of the day. And let's talk about the disappearance of Robert Garrett Stewart, Jr. Now, like I said at the top of the show, I wanted to pick out a couple of episodes that focused in on the FBI's role in Indigenous cases. And as we talked about earlier in the show, that they play a major role when it comes to investigating Indigenous cases. And I think that this is a great example of an investigation that the FBI has handled to the best of their abilities, as always. So Robert Garrett Stewart Jr., who is actually better known as Baby Garrett, went missing from the Crow Indian Reservation near Billings, Montana, in the early hours of October of 2013. Now, according to the Charlie Project website, Stewart was actually last seen with some acquaintances in the vicinity of Jackson Street and State Avenue in southern Billings, Montana. It later goes on to talk about that he may have actually been disoriented at the time, and because it was raining and snowing outside, but it's really hard because, as we talk a lot about on the show, that these investigations, they're very limited when it comes to the information that they put out there for the public to hear. Is that something that you're aware of, that when police do investigations and release them to the public, are you aware that they release limited information just so that way they don't compromise it?
Yeah, absolutely. There is actually a case where the governor pretty much, who was it? It was Ramirez. It was the Ramirez case, widely known, and they were trying to capture him, and they basically informed all the officials and stuff like that, and they were going to hold a press conference over it.
Right.
And the mayor that was holding the press conference gave every bit of detail to the public, and so everything was kind of like, wow, you just blew up our whole case. We literally have nothing to go off of now because now he knows what we're looking for. So, yeah.
And I think that the big important piece of that is that when you give out too much, you always have people that come through and confess, or links, they tend to give out too much information, or they hear it and they're like, oh, I know somebody that did this. I knew somebody that did that. And so they're throwing it at the investigators when they go through. I mean, it taints the case and it gets them ready. At least those that did something, it gives them kind of an opportunity to kind of wiggle and change their story. So now, according to the FBI, they actually believe that Stewart may have been, like you said, disoriented at the time.
Can I ask how old he was?
Yes, actually, Stewart was 26 at the time that he went missing.
Okay, because I wasn't quite sure if he was a baby, because you said Baby Garrett.
Right, so his name Baby Garrett actually comes from the fact that his father is named Robert. He has the same name. He's Junior, so his nickname was Baby Garrett.
Oh, okay. And then, where was he last seen again?
He was actually last seen in the southern Billings area with some acquaintances. Now, it's not really specified who these acquaintances were, whether they were friends, family, strangers. Like I said, that's the example of limited information when it comes to reporting these cases.
It's kind of interesting because I've seen them give out names before on who their last whereabouts they were with, at least.
Right. But again, it's one of those things that the FBI seems to have kind of a strong arm on how much information they put out there. Whether it's to protect the case, that's the confusing part, because like you said, there's not a lot of information for me to talk to or try to figure out if I seen him with this person or that person, because to me, I think that it would kind of jar your memory a little bit, but I mean, that's just me.
Yeah, it's kind of like a double-edged blade with that one. If you give out too much information, then you're going to have people flying out of the woodwork. But if you don't give enough information, I feel like that's also going to stump a lot of people. Because I don't know about you, but if I've been out partying, I'm going to need a lot more than just acquaintances to remember someone.
Right. And every little bit helps for the public or those, like you said, that might have been there. And it's not really clear as to why he was disoriented.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense either. So they didn't talk about any talk screens or
Well, so he hasn't been found?
Oh, wait, so he's missing still?
Yeah, so he has been missing since October of 2013.
So that's kind of an interesting assumption to make.
Yeah, so it's never specified who, which I get that you want to keep the identity and remain anonymous, your witnesses and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like I said, they don't really go into detail as to why they think he was disoriented and
really an odd assumption to make.
It really is. And according to the FBI investigator that's assigned to Baby Garrett's case, Stephen Lowe, he goes on to talk about in an FBI podcast, which is interesting because I didn't know that the FBI had a podcast. They go in to talk about how the tips that they were given suggested that he was disoriented and that he may have been taken against his will.
So why not start there? The people that know that he was disoriented obviously know something more if he was taken against his will, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Right.
Not a lot of that's adding up, but that's just really interesting to me. That
you wouldn't go back and announce that these were the last people that he was seen with and go from there. Now, I'm not entirely sure how much information is given to the families. I know the public, we get what we get. They give us what they feel comfortable telling us, but we're left a lot of times in the dark. But the family members seem to have a lot more information, which I understand, because your family, you want to talk about it, you want to have some kind of inkling, but at the same time, it's really tough for us as public because we might have seen something, somebody knows something.
Yeah, and that's really hard too, because they actually do shut out the families.
Yeah, so like I said, though, Stephen Lowe has gone on record about talking about that the FBI at this point believes that Baby Garrett might have actually been a victim of foul play at this point.
So would they go on to report him as a missing adult endangered then?
Yeah, so his case has been updated as missing, endangered missing, if that makes sense. I think I said it right.
Yeah.
So, but that is where the case stands today. There's a lot of information out there as to his timeline. Uncovered.com has done an amazing job at putting together a timeline of how long after, because his dad had actually waited about 4 to 5 days, I want to say 6 days, after he had gone missing and not heard from him, and that was when the FBI got involved, which is really interesting because it's a missing case, but as we talked about the FBI's role and how much they investigate for these cases, it just kind of, my question is how long did it take for the FBI to really, really step in?
Yeah, because it's kind of hard to do with adults just in general, because they can just pick up and leave and do what they want.
Right.
So.
Right. I mean, it's not a crime to take off, but, like you said, I'm just a missing case in and of itself is really hard to gauge anyway.
Yeah.
But that is where the case stands today. There's been no other information that's put out there. I know that they've talked a lot about the leads that they do have that didn't pan out. So right now it's a cold case. It's a cold missing case today.
That's really sad to hear about, because I don't hear about a lot of these cases on the news or anything like that. I know the FBI is supposed to be head honcho and investigate and put their foot down and stuff like that, but it also seems like they're backed up. Why not reach out to the news for help? Why not use the media outlets? Why let this go unnoticed? Is there cameras around that time? like footsteps, clothing, anything found, like text messages. Did he say anything weird? There's just nothing.
Right, because all that information would actually help out enough to jar somebody's memory. Like they keep saying, somebody knows something. Somebody knows what happened to him.
Yeah, I mean, what year did he go missing? I apologize.
It would have been in 2013.
Okay, so cell phones were still around.
Right. And that's another question that I have as a podcaster is, what about cell phones? Did he have a cell phone on him? And if so, what was the last ping of the location? I mean, these are questions that I'm pretty sure you have as well.
Yeah, I mean, it just raises like a lot of like concern for me. Like either they're not trying their best, not saying that they aren't, just, you could put a lot more effort into it, or there's something more to the case and they don't want to jeopardize it and it's linking it to other cases, which I hope to God that it's not that.
It's interesting that you bring that up because about 6 years later, in 2019, baby Garrett's cousin, Hub Williamson, actually disappeared as well.
So is that just like, it's just, what?
So the investigating body has said that there's no indication that their disappearances are connected in any way. But again, both cases were unresolved as well.
So that case didn't give any more clues or open any more doors to maybe finding both of them?
Not that I can see. Hub's case is one I wanted to cover in a later date, which I'm pretty sure I should have did in this round. But I feel like giving his case a more, the time that it deserves. Garrett goes missing, and then soon, a few years later, his cousin Hub goes missing. I mean, it may be coincidence, but could it really be coincidence?
I mean, it depends on what you believe, honestly. Some people think that if it happens twice, it's coincidental. It happens a third time, it's a pattern. But, I mean, that's so odd, the fact that they're in the same family and they both go missing 6 years apart. Like, there's got to be something more there and you're not saying anything.
Right. You're keeping a lot of it in.
Yeah. So, I mean, did they check, like, the John Does? Did they, like, I don't know. I'm nosy, so, like, I want to be, like...
You're a web sleuth like the rest of us.
Yeah, let me investigate myself. Let me go out there.
The new Twisted Bear private investigation.
I would trip and probably hurt myself really bad.
Well, the information that we do have outside of what we talked about earlier, the last thing that he was actually reported wearing was a Western sugar baseball cap, which was brown in the front and with white mesh in the back. He was wearing a gray zip-up sweater or sweatshirt with greasy on the front pocket area with faded blue Wrangler jeans.
Interesting. Okay, so they obviously got a good look at him.
Which begs the question as to how they got a good look at him. Did they have security cameras? Was there something to look at? Is there something that we as the public can look at?
Yeah, because that's really oddly specific. I mean, that's great that they have specifics like that. Don't get me wrong. It's just oddly specific. I barely remember what I'm wearing.
It's not specified where this information comes from, whether it's from eyewitnesses or if it is sort of like a CVC camera or something to that effect. But Stewart has actually left behind 2 children. So there are 2 kids without their father due to this disappearance.
That's so sad. That's so heartbreaking. I mean, then he definitely didn't just wander off and disappear. If
you have 2 kids, would there really be a reason to, disappear like that?
Yeah. I mean, at least, like, send a message, be like, yo, I'm out, but I'm still good.
Right. Investigators actually believe that he may have been taken against his will. So as of today, he remains missing, endangered missing. And the FBI has actually put out there that they're offering $10,000 reward for any information that might lead to the finding of Robert Garrett Stewart Jr., baby Garrett. If you'd like to submit a tip, you can go to the FBI website, fbi.gov, and you can submit a tip through that way. You can also go to your local FBI agency that you're closest to try to submit. And keep in mind that you can remain anonymous. Somebody out there knows something. So clearly, let's hear it and let's try to find baby Garrett. With COVID-19 cases declining to low levels across Indian country, it feels like the pandemic is now behind us. However, COVID-19 is still spreading in our communities and new variants are still emerging that could spread more quickly or cause more severe illness. Many states have begun to end mask mandates and other COVID-19 prevention measures. but we recognize that the pandemic is still impacting communities across Indian country. As we move forward, it is important that we continue to protect those that are precious to us by following local guidance and being respectful of those around us. With tribal sovereignty and local differences in COVID spread, some communities may have different rules depending on their needs. So check with your local tribal government or local healthcare provider to learn more about guidance for your community. And do what feels safe and comfortable to protect you and your family in situations where guidance has become more relaxed. All right, everybody, and welcome back. Once again, we have with us in the studio tonight Alexis, who is the CEO and owner of Twisted Bear Boutique. So how are you digging the show so far?
I love it. It's actually a lot more, I don't want to say fun because that just sounds awful.
Are you saying I'm not fun?
No, because of what you do, what you podcast about. It's not, that's not fun, but like sitting in on the show is fun. I'm so busy most of the time handling the boutique and stuff that I don't ever get to listen to the shows anymore. So I really like being a part of it.
Well, I appreciate you being here. You got any plans? You want to stay for the rest of the show?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, let's jump into it, ladies and gentlemen, and let's talk about our final case of the night, which is the Unsolved Homicide of Caldwell Dewyne Smith. Now, on September 15th of 2013, authorities from Shanto, Arizona were called to investigate a found body on the Navajo Nation Indian Reservation. Now, authorities were later able to identify the body as 35-year-old Caldwell Dewyne Smith. Now, following the discovery of Caldwell's body, the case was actually labeled as a homicide. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, or the FBI spokesperson, Jill McCabe, announced that the FBI were able to determine that Caldwell had actually died from a penetrating wound from a weapon. Now, the FBI is not releasing many details to protect the integrity of the investigation, McCabe also added. So, once again, we have the FBI taking charge of an investigation, which rightfully they have every right to do, but yet again, we have a clear indication of why they're not releasing information. And really, in all honesty, after that, there hasn't been too much coverage on the case. There hasn't been a lot of information given out. There hasn't been too many updates as far as I could see. I've done a lot of research. I've scoured as best I could, and everyone's very tight-lipped about it. I get it. It's an open homicide, but I mean, it's really tough for me to try to tell these stories. And that was one thing that a listener actually asked me was, why don't we add more information? And to be honest, I'd love to. I would love to give out as much information as I could and to actually be able to report a happy ending, or at least closured ending, I should say. I shouldn't say happy ending. But the problem is that that's all I have. That's all the information that I can use. So, but Caldwell's case actually still remains unsolved. And like I said, it just leaves more questions than answers. For me, anyway. What about you?
Yeah, I remember you talking about this case like a little bit ago. And I remember just sitting there and I was like, okay. And you're like, that's it. And I was like, that's frustrating. There's nothing to go on. There's literally nothing to these cases. And,
right.
Like, I feel bad for the families. I feel bad for the communities. Because I feel like they constantly like live with fear. Like, could this happen again? We don't know who did it to begin with. They never got caught. They've never been found. Like, that's really scary. That's a lot of anxiety. It's a lot of paranoia. It's caused so much fear within our communities to the point that we, as not only just parents and individuals, but I mean, we're constantly checking in. It's why in the Indigenous community, when we grow up, we're constantly check in with me. Let me know where you're at. Let me know when you're coming home. Let me know when you get there. Text me if anything happens. You know, it's built in. Being an Indigenous person living on the reservation, you get that sense that you have to continually check in and make sure you're safe. Being from the Indigenous community or the reservation, it's a very tight community where they kind of keep tabs on everybody. If you're from a reservation, or if you're currently living on the reservation, you know this. You know that everybody looks out for you, or at least most people know who you are, where you're from, where your families are from, what clan you're from, what band you're from, and stuff like that. But with all of these people going missing and little information to go off of as the public, it makes you question really how much effort is being put into these cases, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it takes a village to raise kids, but that doesn't ease the paranoia or anxiety that's happening around you guys. Especially when, like I said again before, like, you guys don't make it to the news. Like, you hear all other races making it to the news, you know, but it just seems like ethnic people don't really make it to the news unless they're doing something wrong.
Right.
So, like, that's, like, my biggest pet peeve right now is the fact that I've never heard any of these cases. And some of them actually have happened close to home with me, and it's just really unnerving. So,
yeah, it's really frustrating because now there have been a lot of advances in the past few years. Up in Washington, they've actually passed a law to alert when an Indigenous person has gone missing. It's something that I want to reach out to, and I'd actually like to extend the olive branch once again. I'm extending a lot of olive branches this episode to a good friend of mine, Tina Rochelle, and I'd like to talk to her because I know that she has had a major involvement with trying to get these laws and stuff passed like that. So, Tina, if you're listening, we'd love to have you. But back to Caldwell's case. Now, in an article published by the Arizona Central in 2020, the FBI actually announced that they were offering, yet again, a $5,000 reward to anybody that had any information that would lead to an arrest in Caldwell's case. Now, if you or someone that you know has any information that could lead to the arrest of the persons responsible for Caldwell's death, I encourage you to call the FBI's Phoenix office at 623-466-1999, or you may submit your tips to the FBI.gov. That's tips.fbi.gov. You can also go to your local FBI office or your nearest American consulate as well. Somebody knows something. It's one of those things that I feel like in Caldwell's case, the biggest question that, I mean, outside of, you know, what really happened to him, a lot of questions that I have are, well, who was the last person to see him? What was he wearing last? Did he have a cell phone on him? I mean, again, these cases both took place in 2013. So cell phones were a big thing back then as well. And why hasn't anybody come forward about what really happened? Family members. I'd actually like to extend an invitation for any of the victims' families to come onto the show to kind of tell their stories. I know that in our first case, baby Garrett's father actually did an interview with the FBI's news article and talked about how much they've been involved with baby Garrett's case. But I haven't seen too much when it comes to Caldwell's case. So, but if anybody knows anybody that would love to come on and talk about Caldwell and kind of give what you can, I'd more than love to have you on the show. Well, as we get toward the end of our show, I want to thank Alexis for coming onto the show and promoting the Twisted Bear boutique line that you've got going on. Do you have any questions while you're here? I know that you, like I said, you're a big true crime fan or admirer, I guess would be the right term.
That sounds twisted. But I do actually have a question, and I think everyone's been wondering the same thing.
Absolutely. Feel free to ask.
Why is it taking you so long to put out these episodes? And I know it's really hard for you to talk about every once in a while. Not trying to put you on the spot or anything, but I think it would really help your viewers to kind of know who you are and what you struggle with day to day. Especially after September 22nd. You know, maybe we'll save that for a bonus sort of interview episode where we can talk about that. Good, because I have a lot of questions for you. But I also have some really big news before we ride off into the sunset tonight. I'd actually like to announce that we are in the process of getting some merchandise. I know that I've had a lot of people asking where they can get merchandise from this podcast, as well as our sister podcast, Scary Stories to Tell from the Res. It's coming, guys. It's coming. And once I get all the ducks lined up in a row, I'm definitely going to make a big announcement on the show, as well as on our Facebook page and social media pages. So if you're a listener, either on our YouTube channel, if you like our visual content, you can also check us out on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and all my other links and social media outlets as well. So, but with that being said, Alexis, I want to say thank you again for coming on to the show. And till next time. Absolutely. Thanks for having me. All right, everybody. Will you make sure to stay blessed and to stay safe out there, everyone? May the Creator bless you all. Have a good one.
All voiceover work, research, and editing is performed by me, Jordan Lone Bear, with special thanks to the music provided to us by Rainisa Ridley. One Missing, One Murdered, All Indigenous is a Lone Bear Productions.